This story right here is another example of how if we had an anti-black hate crime bill, this kind of consequence into the aggressor would not happen. But then again, even if we did, we can't be completely 100% certain that an anti-black hate crime bill will protect the aggressor from the consequence of the person who's been approached upon. And that is the story of this man by the name of Anthony Collins. Anthony Collins is, as you can see, he's a black man, and this is his mugshot. And you can see just by the look in his face and his mugshot, he has one of those looks on his face is like, yep, I know I'm about to, serve some time for what I did, but you know what? I don't regret anything that I did. So basically what happened last year, I believe around September, Anthony Collins was with his family, in Seaside Heights, which of course is in New Jersey. It's basically, it's like a boardwalk pier. Kind of reminds me of a way more smaller version of Atlantic City. And it's, as a beach, you have rides, you have different stores and shops and all of that kind of stuff, clubs and whatnot. If you've seen the show Jersey Shore, you definitely heard of Seaside Heights, even if you've never been to New Jersey. Where all of a sudden this PC man decides to start harassing him and his family. This PC man called him slurs. He, in front of his kids, he even attacked his wife with a bike that the guy was riding. Now, this man had no reason to come and attack this man or harass him and his family. He just saw a black man with his family and decided he was going to start harassing him. Well, Anthony Collins did what he felt he needed to do, and what he had to do was protect his family. And by protecting his family, this guy punched this PC man so hard that he ended up dying from the punch. Now, my thing is, I think the man passed because his head hit the ground. And now that I'm thinking about it, this story sounds very familiar because I remember hearing a story with the same narrative of what it is that I am talking about. But either way, in case it's a story I talked about, or maybe it was a story that I bypassed, it might be a story you may have heard. Well, the update is now coming forward all the way months later, because now Anthony Collins, unfortunately, because like I said, in this establishment, you're not allowed as a black man to defend yourself. This is the third story so far this year that I've talked about where there have been consequences to fall upon a black person. Well, actually, I take that back. It's the second one, but I did talk about a third one. The last one I recently talked about was a black man where a white man tried to break into their home and basically harassed his kids to try to get in, and the black man knocked him out and had to carry him out on a stretcher. Now, if the man had died, they probably would have done something, much like the one in Pennsylvania where the PC guy came and tried to attack this black guy, and he did what he felt he had to do, and we saw what the consequences that fell upon him. So now let me go ahead and get into this story. A Seaside Heights man who delivered a fatal punch to a 70-year-old bicyclist after the victim called him a racial slur was sentenced to 3 years in state prison on Thursday, said Ocean County prosecutor Bradley Dill Billheimer. Now see, what they're doing is they're leaning on the fact that this PC man is elderly, and that's why they're going after him. And now looking at this man's age, this story really sounds familiar. Like, I feel like I talked about this. I need to go and look and see if I actually did, because the story sounds very, very familiar to me. Anthony Collins, age 41, will be required to serve about 2.5 years behind bars before he is eligible for parole under the terms of a plea bargain before State Superior Court Judge Guy P. Ryan. Collins pleaded guilty on June 10th to manslaughter in the death of Robert May, also of Seaside Heights, on October 1st, 2023 in the borough. Certain proof problems in this case resulted in the state entering into a plea agreement calling for a sentence that is below the normal sentencing range for manslaughter, Billheimer said. The victim's family was cognizant of those issues and supported this resolution. I commend them for their understanding and forgiving nature. The victim's death was set into motion just before 4 p.m. on September 18th as Collins left Babe's Corner Store on Summer Avenue in Seaside Heights. A man later identified as May riding a bicycle approached Collins and called him a racial epithet. As a result of the derogatory remark, Collins struck May once in the face, causing him to fall from his bike and strike his head on a curb, according to defense attorney Turnback. Now, they keep saying that it was a fatal punch that caused his death, but here's the thing. The only way that it could have been a fatal punch is if he died before he hit the ground, but they said his head hit the curb after he got punched, so it wasn't the punch that killed this guy, it was his head hitting that curb, and it probably cracked and fractured his skull, and it was probably some bleeding there. That's most likely what did it, but they keep saying it was the punch. No, it was him hitting his head on the curb that most likely did it. At Collins' detention hearing, Turnback said his client acted after May, known as Frog, rode his bicycle into Collins' wife, assaulting her with it before turning to Collins and calling him the N-word after months of harassing Collins' children with racist remarks. So there it is. So this has been an ongoing thing. So this guy that was harassing this man and his family, this wasn't a random. This was somebody they were already familiar with. And that's usually how it is. Going back to the story that I talked about with that black barber in Pennsylvania who was consistently harassed by the white neighbor that was living above the barbershop that he owned, consistently harassing him. And see, and the thing is, I was looking at comments under the thread and where I saw this article, and you had PC individuals under there saying, oh, well, this guy should have just called the police. Oh, why did this black man get so upset because this white man called him the N-word and everything? I said, it's not the fact that he just called him the N-word and everything like that. See, if y'all read the article like I'm doing right now, y'all would know this was an ongoing thing. Who knows? This guy was probably taking measures like that to try to get something done. But see, here's the thing. Remember the last black person that called the cops, what happened to her? And that happens way more often than not, where you have black people who are in situations like this and they call the cops, and when they get called, it turns into something else against the person who actually called. And this was more than him just saying slurs. This says this man had hit this man's wife with his bike, and he's been harassing his children for months. So this was a escalation, and the guy finally acted, and this is what ended up happening. But like I said, going back at the beginning, if we had an anti-black hate crime bill in the books, they would probably think twice to do this, but their ego wouldn't allow them to stop. But you know what? And I said this in a video before, months ago, anti-black hate crime bill or not, you won't be able to predict the outcome of the person who's being the aggressor and the person who's being approached upon, as you can see in the situation that happened with that black barber and the situation that happened with this black man, and the people that ended up falling basically on, well, in the barber situation, falling below this man's power tool, and the other guy falling below or on this guy's hand, or should I say his fist. Going back to the article, it states, but an assistant Ocean County prosecutor argued at the same hearing that Collins left the victim unconscious on the sidewalk, bleeding from the mouth and head. May was treated at the scene but refused additional medical assistance. He went home and began to behave in a way that suggested the blow to his head may have been far more serious than anyone initially realized. About an hour after the incident, Seaside Heights police were called to his residence and the Tri-Borough First Aid Squad took him by ambulance to Community Medical Center in Toms River, according to the prosecutors. May's condition continued to deteriorate, and he was transferred to Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick a short time later, but his health worsened and he died on October the 1st. So there could have been an opportunity there where he probably could have survived, but he did not seek proper medical attention after they came and got him. They said he just went home. They said this man just went home. And they said that they got a call and his health started to get worse. And that's the thing, he most likely had a concussion. I'm very certain that he did. So by him not seeking out the medical attention, that was not the smartest thing for him to do. He just kept on going. And mind you, like I said, this guy is 70. If this could have happened to someone who was half his age and the same results happened, what makes you think that a 70-year-old was not going to suffer the same fate as far as the injuries go? So that was a bit of negligence on his part. An autopsy determined that May died from blunt force trauma inflicted on him during the assault 2 weeks earlier. The death was ruled a homicide, the prosecutor office said. The major crime unit of the prosecutor's office and Seaside Heights police investigated. Detectives determined that Collins was May's assailant. He was taken into custody after he surrendered himself to police on October 15th. May has been held in the Ocean County Jail in Toms River ever since. The Ocean County Medical Examiner's Office and U.S. Marshals Service participated in the investigation. And another thing that got me was you had a lot of other PC people under the comment threads from what I was seeing trying to say, oh, now his kids are going to be by themselves, you know, his wife is going to have to do without and all this type of things. I'm like, look, it's only 2.5 years. It could have been a whole lot worse. This guy could have got way more time. Like I said, I truly believe they gave him the manslaughter because at the end of the day, this May guy, or this guy who he who was harassing him, he was the one who was the antagonist. It's not like this man Anthony Collins went up to this guy and just started harassing him and just hit him for no reason. Again, it laid out for months that he and his family, his children, were being harassed by this guy. This guy attacked this man's wife with his bike, and then he called him slurs. You ball all that up, and he did what he did. This man did not have any intentions that when he punched him that he was going to die. As a matter of fact, when he hit him, the guy was still very much alive. And that's why I keep saying I don't think it was necessarily the punch that killed him. Now, when they said bleeding from the mouth, that's necessarily is easy to believe that the bleeding from the mouth came because this guy punched him in the mouth, and that's where the blood came from. But as far as the head part, that's because he hit his head on the curb. That's where it came from. So I truly believe that the death came from him hitting his head. If he didn't hit his head, the guy would most likely still be alive. He just would have a bruised lip or a bruised face. And that's really even at his age of 70. But like I said, he bought it on himself to try to make it seem like this man right here that you see on your screen is the literal, like he just did it for no reason, is absurd. Of course, leave it up to mainstream media and its supporters. They will flip it and say, well, he shouldn't have did that. How are you going to get upset because of a word? I said, y'all need to read the story and understand it wasn't just him calling him the word. It was the lead up to that. The word came later. Him being called slurs came up later, but it was the build up to that, which is what most likely made this guy very irate. The he has a family, he has children, he has a wife. He's going to protect them. That's what a husband is supposed to do, last time I checked, unless the rules have changed. But then again, this is a black man, so you know how that goes. But that's the story right there. I don't feel bad for the deceased. I feel absolutely nothing. He should have known better even at his age of 70, but then again, he's 70, or he was 70. So he definitely comes from a particular time period. And peep how this is in Seaside Heights, this is in New Jersey. This is not the South. We keep trying to tell people that people think that white supremacy only exists in the South because that's how it's been laid out to us. But no, it's prevalent because it's everywhere. It is a global system. It is all over. It doesn't matter. Just because they portrayed it to be in the South all the time doesn't mean that's necessarily where it's at. That's the trick bag. This was in New Jersey, which is considered the North. They are prevalent there just as not, if not more than the South, and are easier to hide it because people think it's only in the South. As far as I'm concerned, that's one less Klan member roaming the earth.